Aviva Stadium, Dublin, Ireland. Two rivals, two different stories. Iowa State comes in as the defending Big 12 co-champion. Kansas State comes in hungry, armed, and with a dynamic quarterback and a dangerous run game. It's Cyclones, it's Wildcats, it's college football in Ireland with Rooster's cocky picks. It's time to break the huddle. Rooster, we are back officially for the first ever episode of Rooster's Cocky Picks for the college football season. And we've got two matchups to break down for you today, starting with one of the biggest matchups, as you can see in front of me, the helmets in Dublin, Ireland. Kansas State versus Iowa State, a Big 12 matchup to start the year. No time wasted. And Rooster, we're going to dive right into it. We're going to talk about the lines, what people can expect in this game, and at the very end, we're going to talk about who Rooster decides to pick in this lineup for betting. So, Rooster, I will turn it over to you. I mentioned it in the header. So many key matchups in this game. You got two returning quarterbacks, Rocco Becht for Iowa State, Avery Johnson, Kansas State. Both teams bringing in some new guys. Both teams returning head coaches. Coming into this year very confidently. Get your quick take on the game and what's going to be your bet for this game?
Well, Nate, the most intriguing point that sticks out to me when I'm analyzing this matchup is that Iowa State, while they do have more returning starters, the production that they've lost on the field is astronomically greater than the losses that Kansas State has lost themselves. Because while Kansas State did lose a couple players in their secondary to the NFL draft and they lost their workhorse running back in DJ Giddens, Iowa State went down and lost two of the arguably top 10 wide receivers in college football last year with Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel headed to the NFL draft. So when I'm starting to look at the way that this matchup is shaping up, it's a very new receiving core for the Iowa State Cyclones, and they're going up against a relatively new secondary on Kansas State with their own right, with Kansas State losing a couple players on their end to the NFL draft in that secondary. So when I'm looking at this matchup, the Iowa State-Kansas State matchup is going to come down to the offensive line of Iowa State against the defensive line of Kansas State. And when you look at Kansas State's defensive breakdown, Kansas State is returning their top two tacklers from last season with VJ Payne and with Austin Romaine back there heading the front seven at the middle linebacker position. And they also have, what a football name is this, Cody Stufflebean, who is an absolute unit on the end, and he's also returning for Kansas State. Kansas State's returning three of their top defensive linemen. Three of their top defensive players. So when I'm looking at this, it is really important to note that while Iowa State did lose some of their players on offense, Kansas State also did lose several of their players on defense. However, the main thing that I am really looking at is on the Kansas State offensive side of the football. Kansas State is returning their quarterback, who, while he did have a disappointing season last year, let's not forget the fact that Avery Johnson is the reason why Will Howard ended up leaving Kansas State and going to Ohio State and ended up winning the national championship there. It's because Kansas State had enough confidence to back Avery Johnson and put him out there on the line of scrimmage to command the offense, and they believed he was the man to take over the program. And not only that, they returned their top receiver from last year in J.C. Brown, and then they also, while it's not their starting workhorse running back, they do also have Dylan Edwards returning, who is a lethal weapon in the backfield. While he's not a big physical running back, he still is a very shifty. He's very shifty, agile, has great receiving back there in the backfield, and they also have Joe Jackson back there as well. And those are two players that have been a key cornerstone in that offense when DJ Giddens was out or off the field. And that's something that is very important to note when you're considering the fact that Kansas State may have some slight troubles throwing the football because of Avery Johnson's inconsistency. However, I do believe that Avery Johnson and his rushing ability is something that is just uncomparable when you compare that to the Iowa State defense. So the bet that I'm looking at this week is going to be Kansas State -3 at -115, meaning you can place down $115 to end up covering and winning $100 towards your bank account, towards your next meal, because we all know it's going to hit. It's a lock. And it's not betting if you know it's a lock. So that's why I'm going to back Kansas State in this one -3. I believe that the secondary, while it is new, should be plenty enough to maintain the new receivers from Iowa State. Iowa State's not going to have a lot of time to build up that camaraderie back there in the backfield. Rocco Becht throwing it to his new receiving weapons from the transfer portal, and I believe that the defensive players that Kansas State returned on the defensive side of the ball are going to be enough to hold Iowa State down, and I think Kansas State gets the job done in this one.
Yeah, and you bring up a lot of great points. You give a phenomenal background on both of these teams, laid out the bet pretty simple. I have to agree with you, Rooster. I think I'm going to lean on Kansas State as well, -3 with the experience of Avery Johnson. I think he has something to prove this year. I think Iowa State really played their cards last year, and it's not to say that they don't have a talented team this year, but they're going to have to depend on Rocco Becht a lot. And to your point, that cohesiveness, it's going to play into it. But I also love the over in this game, 49.5 points, given both offenses, playmakers. I got to think in the Big 12, it's going to be a shootout. Give me the over on the 49.5 as well. And then you look at the prop bets. I really like Avery Johnson, anytime rushing touchdown. Carson Hansen, anytime touchdown. And longest reception props for each quarterback. I think, these are some prop bets that people need to look out for as well. And as we close this out, if you're looking to place a wager, we're going to put out a full description of our bets. You can subscribe to our betting Roosters Cocky Picks full layout for the full week of week 0, $5 a month, real cheap. Get it while you can. Get it while it's at a low price. And be sure to subscribe down below. Help the channel grow. Comment down below what you think about this game and what are your odds and predictions for this upcoming game in Dublin, Ireland. We'll see you next week. It's time to break the huddle.